trying to think of some interesting stuff that I've been seeing recently. I mean, it's kind of hard to do that because the last time I was here yesterday, I don't know. Oh, you know what? I can't talk about. I've been rewatching Hoozuki no Reitetsu, Hoozuki's cool-headedness. He's incredibly hot, by the way. I would recommend that people watch it. It's actually really interesting, having read The Mass Psychology of Fascism, and like understanding some of the Protestant work ethic myth. Watching Hoozuki no Reitetsu and like watching how much of work culture is imbued into that show and how much of its prescriptions are sort of determined by that. You know, like there's always normative values expressed in media to some degree or another. And with Hoozuki, a lot of that revolves around almost like the Protestant work ethic. It's just the Japanese equivalent of the same thing because it's a fundamentally capitalistic and hierarchical mindset, you know, cultural conservatism and the like. But nonetheless, I find the characters to be really, really well written and adorable, and in Hoozuki's case, very hot. Yeah. Also, it is interesting that sometimes there is a sort of prescriptive, descriptive line blurring to such an extent you could view it as intentional, or you could view it as unintentional and a conflation, or a conflation and intentional, where a lot of the sort of misery writ large that people experience in hell is because, well, it's hell. It's defined by eternal torment and that sort of thing. But some of this torment is applied to the demons, like the hell. The offices of hell are just that, offices where things are administered and managed bureaucratically, you know. I think there's like that presents obviously a very cool and fun setting for a show, a seinen like Hoozuki no Reitetsu. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, sure, the souls of the damned are suffering in hell. But what about the demons? Like, if this is a office working environment where it's like, oh yeah, demons and dead people and supernatural creatures are employed as staff, administrators, record keepers, engineers, and that sort of thing, then like, why is it so strenuous for them? Why does it have to be that way for them? And I think that the answer lies in, of course, Japanese work culture and Japanese capitalism as we understand it, being absolutely insane. But you know, it got the noggin jogging, and like, I do wish that more there would be more of a sort of international cultural and political awareness present in Japanese media, including, you know, anime. Basically, what I'm saying is more anime should have the social awareness of other countries and other cultures that Metal Gear does. You know, you think about Metal Gear, and sure, it bears a lot of Japanese cultural hallmarks, but it doesn't always fall to the same tropes and trappings, right? It's more, I feel like it's more aware of the system it's critiquing at an international level as it pertains to other countries in addition to Japan. And America as well, you know? Essentially, I would like the fish to come out of the water a little bit, so to speak, so I can understand a little bit better what the water is. You know, because I think, you know, good art is contingent upon that, upon, you know, the ability to think critically about that sort of thing and express yourself in very novel and interesting ways. And I want that show to be good. Of course, it's done airing, so whatever, but, you know, obviously I'm going to critique things that I like as well as things that I don't. It's just, you know, it's just a whole new world opens up when you get used to using your critical thinking brain that you use for politics when you watch random stuff that you like, even if it's not that good. You know, big proponent of, even if you're watching something shitty, analyzing it critically. And not just critically from like, is this good or bad? What makes it good or bad, right? Like, not in the film school sense, in the actual, like, socioeconomic sense. You know, I guess it's one of the ways in which I kind of fancy myself a Renaissance woman. Ow. One mushroom? Nah, lose it. Okay. Give me this. 3 mushrooms. Okay, that's better than 1 mushroom. Didn't know it happened. No. Not the item that you necessarily want at the end. 7th place? Okay. But I've been quite enjoying the show over the course of rewatching it. One of the most interesting things to me is how much, like, we think about sex and sexuality as though they are distinct and sometimes socially improper subjects. But they transcend any sort of barriers that we have arbitrarily and reactionarily constructed, reactively, I guess, constructed, and it bleeds into all sorts of aspects of life, which is evident in a show like Hoozuki no Reitetsu, where a lot of the social relationships are determined by sexual attitude, sexual perception. A lot of the economics of the show are determined by a sort of passivity that's very sexually adjacent, you know? Basically, what I'm saying is that everybody in the show is a bottom, which is also usually the case in Japan, Japanese politics, because of how conservative and traditional societies are, especially, Japan being the example here. Like, what's his name? Hoozuki is Japanese. He was at one time actually alive. Like, he's a demon, but he wasn't always a demon. He used to be human. And he's the chief of staff for one of the people in hell. And then you also have this other guy who is kind of like Hoozuki's counterpart. He works in heaven. And of course, given the socio-cultural implications of Japanese media, he is a caricature of a Chinese person. He's Chinese. And they make him kind of the playboy and whatever. And that's sort of the most directly that the show usually deals with sexuality. And it's often trucked and bartered in a very traditionalist sense. He is viewed as like being a creep, not necessarily because of him treating women as objects and being super weird to them as though they're a fundamentally different category of thing, but rather that he's horny, right? Like there's and you'll see this oftentimes in Japanese media, that like they will conflate being horny with being creepy, which is not the case. It's possible to acknowledge and have a healthy sexual relationship with your own sexuality and be a perfectly normal human being. But the way the show treats it is that no, the thing that's creepy about him is that he's horny. Because there are some attitudes that he expresses with a certain tone that are relatively like common and present in other characters in the show towards women, towards subjects of their sexual desire. Essentially, the relationship simply is thus. This guy, this Chinese mythical beast who assumes human form, is very horny, and objectifies women to the extent that they are the object of his sexual desire. The issue that a normal person should take with that is that in this case, women are viewed as an object. The issue that the show takes with that is the sexual desire, right? It's perfectly normal for somebody to have somebody else in mind as a subject of sexual desire. What makes that normal, what differentiates that from being really weird about it, is that this person to you is a subject of desire, not an object of desire, if that makes sense. You know? Sexual politics are literally everywhere, if you have the eyes to see them. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, even donate to support the channel. It would really mean a lot to me.